All right, so we just finished UFC 259. Man, let me tell you something. The early preliminary card started off like with a bang. The first five fights ended up in like TKOs or submissions. The first guy knockout in the second round. The second one, the lightweight, it was a pretty big knockout too. I mean, the preliminary card, I don't even remember the people's names. You just don't remember the names because they're not so popular, you know? But women's strawweight, Amanda Lemos, she won. Knocked out the Souza. I don't even know these people. This is the first time I've seen these people, right? But it was a pretty good knockout. And there's another guy, Jake Matthews. I know Jake Matthews because he beat up Diego Sanchez a couple of years ago. He got submitted by Sean Brady. And that was a great fight with Carlos Alberg. People think he was this really good-looking, confident guy. Well, he got knocked out by this Nigerian guy named Kennedy Nzechukwu. I don't know how to say his name. But you should definitely watch that fight. That was very fun to watch because Carlos Alberg was like undefeated up until that point. It was like 6-0. And everyone thought he was the favorite to win. He was 3-0 actually. And people thought he was going to win. Well, he gets knocked out by Kennedy Nzechukwu, who is now 8-1. So yeah, go to the flyweight fight, Espinosa versus Elliott. That was okay. Kai Kara France, he does a KO. I think I need to rewatch that one. I wasn't paying attention, but he won a performance of the night. Uros Medic also got performance of the night. I don't remember watching them, but I remember they were pretty good KOs. And Benavidez lost again convincingly against an undefeated guy named Askar Askarov, like a Russian fighter. Actually, is he from Russia? I think he is from Russia, yeah. And this Chinese fighter got beat as well. It was a very close one against a guy named Kyler Phillips. I don't remember so much, but yeah, the Chinese fighter was on a roll, but then he got dominated near the end. Dominic Cruz barely beat Casey Kenny with his footwork. It wasn't really convincing in my opinion, but it was a win nevertheless. And light heavyweight fight, Alexander Rakic versus Santos, and he won. Rakic won by decision, and people were very disappointed in this fight because they expected like power to happen in this fight, but people they were very scared to throw punches. You know, they were waiting for the other person to react. So that was a not so interesting one. Well, here we go now. The final four fights of the main card. Islam Makhachev, who is basically, if you don't know him, he is now the rank 14th lightweight. While the more important thing is he is managed by Khabib Nurmagomedov, the lightweight champion. Khabib Nurmagomedov basically was coaching him throughout the entire fight. And in interviews last year, Khabib Nurmagomedov said, this guy, Islam Makhachev, will be the lightweight champion eventually. I mean, he's on a 7-fight win streak. I mean, it was disappointing that he actually lost one fight. He's actually 19-1 now. In Russia, he was 11-1. So in the UFC, he's basically 8-1 right now. And keep in mind, Khabib Nurmagomedov was 13-0 in the UFC. This guy has won 8 already, and he's 8-1. He lost one fight by knockout, and you know Khabib wants this guy to be undefeated forever, right? Like him. But his record is already 19-1, so it's very impressive. And this is the first time I watched him fight. I want to give this guy props for what he did, man. Islam Makhachev, he couldn't fight. His last fight before tonight was like September 2019, but he had injuries or you know he couldn't do a weight cuts, and he had to cancel a couple of fights. He was gonna fight Rafael dos Anjos last year, but he had to cancel that one, and it was disappointing. And yeah, and a lot of other people couldn't compete when Islam was there because of they had COVID. So 3 fights were canceled last year. Well, today he fought a guy named Drew Dober. Drew Dober was on a 3-fight win streak. He had a couple of KOs on the way, and you know, he was the underdog. Islam Makhachev took him down and basically used his ground game, wrestling, to beat this guy. And Islam Makhachev, man, if you watch this guy fight, it makes you think of Khabib. Khabib trained this guy. Khabib's father, before he passed away, was training this guy too. And when you have the greatest lightweight and many people say is the greatest fighter of all time, coaching you, turning you into one of the best fighters, is unstoppable. Islam Makhachev feels he'll be the champion in 2022. But I don't know. The lightweight division is very difficult right now because a lot of people don't want to fight. They don't want to lose their spots. But Islam really does deserve to fight a big fighter right now. Apparently, a lot of people are refusing to fight him. They don't want to fight this guy. He's a monster. He doesn't look very big. He's a lightweight, but he can take you down. And once he takes you down, you cannot get up. He submitted Drew Dober with an arm triangle choke, and it was very impressive. It was very impressive how he won. And yeah, he wants to fight Tony Ferguson. He feels Tony Ferguson keeps calling out Khabib, even though Tony has lost 2 fights. Tony is 37 years old. Islam basically wants to retire this guy. And I believe Islam Makhachev will beat Tony. Islam is a very young guy right now. How old is he? Let's check his age. He's 29, young guy, 8 years younger than Tony Ferguson. He's probably going to beat him. And once Tony Ferguson loses a couple more, UFC will be forced to cut this guy. This guy was on a 12-fight win streak and started losing. Once you lose that bad to a Justin Gaethje, you're never going to be the same again. That's what Khabib said, and he was right. Every time Khabib makes a prediction, he's always right. And now let's get to the championship fights of the night. Amanda Nunes destroys Megan Anderson in 2 minutes. She basically knocked her out, and then the ref didn't stop the fight, so she ended up submitting her in 2 ways at the same time. Basically, Nunes was going to break her arm or choke her out. She was getting choked out, and her arm was getting torn up at the same time. Forced to tap. 2 minutes. Megan Anderson was on a 2-fight knockout streak, and she also was a champion in another promotion called Invicta. And to see her get destroyed that fast, man, and the commentators was like, there's absolutely nothing left for Amanda Nunes. She's done everything. She's defended both of her titles, and she continues. She's going to retire on top. Amanda Nunes is a lesbian, actually. She's married to another woman, and I believe they adopted a baby, and, she is very happy to have that baby in her life. We saw that in the UFC clips that they've been showing over the past week leading up to the event. And another bantamweight fight, very fun fight, because Peter Yan, the champion, was facing Aljamain Sterling, the number 1 contender. Peter Yan, he was doing really well, and Sterling was doing really well too, but the commentators felt Sterling was like too aggressive and not slowing it down enough. Peter Yan was about to win, but when one of Sterling's knees were on the ground, Peter Yan kicked him in the head, knocking him out. A lot of people like, what happened? And, is he faking it? If it's an illegal knee, the title has to change. Basically, the title changed hands. This was considered Peter Yan's loss because of an illegal knee. So the new champion, Aljamain Sterling. Wow, unbelievable. A legal knee caused this guy to lose it. But yeah, as the commentators, Khabib said, someone in the corner asked him to knee the guy. But then again, I think Aljamain Sterling shouldn't have let himself so vulnerable to be hit like that. If he was a good fighter, he wouldn't have let him put himself in that position, right? So I'm not a huge fan of what happened, but things happen. An illegal knee that prevented Sterling from competing. He couldn't go any longer. I mean, the doctors came in. He was out like a light, man. He couldn't go any further, so they just decided to call off the fight. And Sterling, I thought Sterling was faking it at first, but he wasn't faking it. He wasn't happy with how he won, but I guess he's the champion. And I guess they're going to have a rematch to determine who's the real champ. Many years ago, Dustin Poirier lost. Dustin Poirier fought the lightweight champion, Eddie Alvarez, and Eddie Alvarez did an illegal knee too, which led to a DQ. And by doing that, they had a rematch like a number of months later. I think they're going to do the same here. But Peter Yan didn't seem happy what happened there too. But that was a good fight too. Let's get to the main event. Wow, the scorecard. Jan Blachowicz destroys Israel Adesanya. In terms of the scoring, it looks like it's a pretty lopsided victory for Jan Blachowicz. But in my opinion, Israel Adesanya did get some punches in, a lot of kicks in. Even Jan Blachowicz said his leg was hurting. Jan Blachowicz actually said on an interview afterwards that Israel Adesanya, his basically Jan did not think Israel's punches would be that hard. It surprised him how hard they were, and he didn't expect Israel to be that slow. So what led to the victory? Jan Blachowicz got a lot of punches in, and Jan attempted many takedowns, clinches, and Israel was able to get out of a lot of them. But however, in the fourth and fifth rounds, he was taken down, and when he was taken down, he couldn't get out of it. I mean, the weight difference really mattered. So what happened was, at the end of the fifth round, Jan Blachowicz had Israel Adesanya down and pummeled him, and Israel tried his very best to get out of it and couldn't. And so Israel, his first loss, he couldn't become the champ, couldn't become the double champ. And I'm a little bit disappointed. I love the story of an undefeated fighter. However, Israel Adesanya did put Jan Blachowicz over. He praised Jan. He said, if I had to lose to anyone, it would be someone like Jan, and the nicest guy in the world, respectful guy. And yeah, Israel Adesanya during the fight actually had an eye poke and kicked Jan in the groin as well, but Jan just wanted to keep on going. And Jan was a good guy, a good sport. He won fair and square, and Israel appreciates Jan Blachowicz's story because Jan's record when he first started in the UFC was 2-4. So 2 wins and 4 losses, and 1-4, in those 5 fights, right? So he could have been cut from the UFC. If you start losing a lot, the UFC is going to cut you, just like they cut Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos recently, top heavyweights. So after that, though, after the 2-4 run, since then he has won 9 out of his last 10 fights, which is absolutely incredible. And to add that to the list, he took out the superstar that was Israel Adesanya, who was previously undefeated. All right, so add that to the resume. So Israel says, okay, it couldn't have happened to a better person. And as you can predict, John Jones went on the internet and started, laughing, posting pictures of Israel getting beaten, saying "I told you so," saying there won't be a super fight. I think a lot of John Jones fans are not going to agree with this, but Israel Adesanya 2 years ago said he's going to move up to light heavyweight to take out John Jones. And John Jones was probably a little bit afraid of Israel. Otherwise, he wouldn't give him that much attention like he is. And I think he escaped it. John Jones vacated the title last year. It could have very well been John Jones versus Israel Adesanya. But who knows? Here's what could still happen. A lot of people think the super fight of Israel versus Jones is not going to happen now because of the fight, because of the loss that transpired today. But we don't know what's going to happen with the heavyweight division. We have to see what happens with Miocic and Ngannou. And John Jones will get the heavyweight title shot to face the winner of Ngannou and Stipe. So this could be a story. John Jones may actually lose to Ngannou or Stipe, right? And there'll be 2 fighters that hate each other that went up one weight division and lost. I mean, that could be a story on its own, leading to that super fight. However, if John Jones were to win the heavyweight title, he basically will have done something that not many people have done. I mean, Daniel Cormier did that as well. But Israel Adesanya can still get that super fight in the heavyweight, but because he lost the light heavyweight title, Dana White doesn't feel he deserves to go up to heavyweight to fight John Jones. And if Israel lost to Jan Blachowicz that way, I mean, it was a good fight. It lasted 5 rounds. It was a decision loss. It wasn't a knockout. It wasn't a submission. So, but a loss is a loss, right? So I think John Jones would probably destroy Israel Adesanya, especially with the drugs. He's always getting tested positive for drugs. So yeah, I mean that's basically the news of what happened this year. I can't believe like all the young fighters that got to speak to Joe Rogan at the end of the interview were so happy to speak to him. They're like fanboys. I mean, Joe Rogan started as the guy from Fear Factor. He used to just tell the contestants, "Okay, get into your swimsuits." He loved saying that. I never forgot that he was the guy from Fear Factor, but he reinvented himself as this UFC commentator slash analyst, and now he's a famous podcaster who made millions of dollars from Spotify, and his podcasts get like millions and millions of views. He does 3-hour conversations, and he's reinvented himself as one of the most popular podcasters slash announcers in the world. Unbelievable how he did it. One of my notes noted that Euros Medic did a crazy knockout in the lightweight. He was so fast. Again, I forgot. There were 15 fights that night, man. It was how long was it? Let me try and count. It was almost 9 hours, the whole event. So, but it was a fun event. I'm disappointed Israel Adesanya lost. It was amazing how Amanda Nunes won, and it was shocking how the bantamweight title switched hands as a result of an illegal knee. And it was amazing how Islam Makhachev won the fight with Khabib's support. And finally, on the main card, it was disappointing to see the Rakic versus Santos match go that way. I mean, last week ended up being a really boring event, man, with Gane versus Rosenstrike. I mean, man, a lot of things are going wrong. Dana White cannot make his super fights. He wanted Khabib versus Conor. Conor lost. He wanted Israel versus Jones, but now Israel lost. But, it is what it is. Let's see what happens. I hope Islam Makhachev gets Tony Ferguson. And, yeah, I don't know if Tony Ferguson would accept it. Let's see what he tweets, Let me see what he might have made a tweet already, so let's take a look at what he did tweet. So, twitter.com/Tony Ferguson XT. I'm sure Tony Ferguson will have said something. I mean, he just turned 37 recently, and I don't think he said anything. Yeah, he did not say anything. He's betting. He's promoting. He didn't say anything, so. But he's still working out hard. He has a kid. Yeah. He's still determined to fight Khabib, believe it or not. Wow, I can't believe it. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, that was my UFC 259 review. See you later this week. Peace out.